Dear students, a very good morning to all of you. Today's topic of the pedontology class is on influence of systemic disorders and stress on the pedontium. Now it has been established through literature that the etiological factors of most periodontal diseases are plaque and calculus. In today's class, you're going to learn how the presence of systemic conditions like endocrine diseases, hematological disorders, stress, nutritional deficiencies, etc. enhance the severity of periodontal diseases. Now, systemic diseases do not themselves cause periodontal diseases, but they create such changes in the oral tissues so as to promote the severity and progression of periodontal disease. Now, the systemic disorders alter the host tissues and physiology, impair host barrier integrity and defense to the periodontal infection. Now, this results in a disease which is of a more destructive type. These diseases, however, do not initiate periodontitis, but they may predispose, accelerate, or otherwise increase its progression. Now, with this understanding, we will proceed how each systemic disorders or diseases affect our pedontium. Now, the different diseases or disorders which bring about changes in the pedontium are endocrine disorders and hormonal changes, stress and psychosocial disorders, hematological disorders, immune deficiencies, nutritional deficiencies, and certain other systemic conditions. Now, first we are going to look into the different endocrine disorders and hormonal changes. Now, the different conditions of the hormones are diabetes mellitus because of endocrine hormones, puberty pregnancy associated with female sex hormones, hypoparathyroidism, and cortisol-induced stress. Now, these hormones modify the tissue response to local factors and produce anatomic changes in the gingiva that may favor plaque accumulation and disease progression. To begin with, we are going to discuss about diabetes mellitus. From a perio point of view, this is an extremely important disease which brings about several changes in the oral cavity. Now, we've already learned in great detail about diabetes mellitus in your previous years. I'm briefly going to tell you about its types. Type 1 is the insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus, which occurs in children and young adults. Type 2 is a non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus and is of an adult onset. An additional category is the secondary type, which includes gestational diabetes associated with pregnancy, and other secondary diabetes types are that involving the pancreatic cancer and destruction of the insulin producing cells. In the oral cavity, diabetes mellitus manifests as first condition is sclerosis, which is a drying or cracking at the corners of the mouth. Along with that, mucosal drying and cracking, burning mouth and tongue are also seen, and diminished salivary flow affecting the normal flushing mechanism of saliva, and therefore there are increased chances of root caries. The periodontal changes that happen in diabetic patients are enlargement of gingiva with sessile or pedunculated gingival polyposis, polypoid gingival proliferation and multiple abscess formation, periodontitis and loosening of teeth. Now, one of the striking features of diabetes mellitus is seen in uncontrolled diabetes, which is a reduction in defense mechanism and increased susceptibility to infections, leading to a destructive periodontal disease. And therefore, periodontal disease is considered to be the sixth complication of diabetes mellitus. Now, which are the other five? Yes, they are the microvascular diseases like retinopathy, nephropathy, neuropathy, and the macrovascular diseases like cardiovascular disease and cerebrovascular diseases. Now, diabetes mellitus on its own does not cause gingivitis or periodontitis, but it alters the response of periodontal tissues to local factors, quickens the loss of bone, and following periodontal therapy or surgery, it delays the tissue healing. Now, in patients with diabetes mellitus, because of the high levels of glucose in the circulating blood, certain changes occur in the bacterial microflora as well. Now, in type 1 diabetes mellitus with periodontitis, the subgingival flora mainly consists of Capnocytophagia, anaerobic vibrios, Actinomyces species, and there are low numbers of Prevotella intermedia, Aggregatibacter actinomycetum comitans, and Porphyromonas gingivalis in the periodontal lesions. Whereas in type 2 diabetes mellitus, there is a predominant microflora consists of Campylobacter rectus, Prevotella intermedia, Porphyromonas gingivalis, and Aggregatibacter actinomycetum comitans. Now let us see what changes happen in the polymorphonuclear leukocytes. The PMNs are the main defense cells which perform functions like adherence to the vessel wall, diapedesis, chemotaxis, phagocytosis of the bacterial cell, and thereby help to protect us from the invading pathogens. Now in diabetic patients, the function of the PMNs are impaired. Now this causes an increased susceptibility or likelihood of infections since the proliferation of periodontal pathogens cannot be controlled due to a failed immune defense. Now what happens to the collagen? In diabetic individuals, collagen is a supporting structure of all tissues. Like all tissues, it also undergoes mechanisms of repair and replacement. A chronic hypoglycemic environment affects the synthesis, maturation, and maintenance of collagen. Now, in this chronic hypoglycemic state, many protein matrix molecules undergo a process known as non-enzymatic glycosylation. Now, this leads to the formation of certain products of this reaction, which are known as accumulated glycation end products or AGEs. This AGE formation occurs in individuals with normal blood glucose, but in hypoglycemic individuals, this production is even more. These AGEs affect the collagen in a number of ways, like increased cross-linking of collagen fibers, making it less soluble. Now, once this happens, the normal mechanism of repair and replacement becomes difficult. Impairment of repair and replacement of collagen leads to damaged collagen fibers, and this remains in tissue for longer periods. And this aged collagen is less resistant to destruction by periodontal infection. Now, migration of the cells to the cross-linked collagen is also affected. This combined effect of altered cellular response to local factors and impaired tissue integrity due to altered collagen metabolism together make diabetic individuals more susceptible to infections and rapid destruction of periodontal tissues. Now next we are going to discuss about the influence of female sex hormones on the periodontium. In females, the journey beginning from puberty and ending at menopause is a play of different hormones, and every stage they exert their influence on the periodontium. The modification of female sex hormones is either an initiating or a complicating factor of periodontal and gingival diseases. Now these changes which occur in periodontium are associated with the physiological hormonal changes which occur systemically. These changes are characterized with a non-specific inflammatory reaction with a predominant vascular component, and this leads clinically with a marked bleeding or hemorrhagic tendencies. Now let us look at the gingiva in puberty. During puberty, the gingiva responds in an exaggerated manner to the local deposits, that is plaque and calculus. There is an increased inflammation of the gingivae. Bluish-red discoloration of the gingiva is seen, and the gingivae appear edematous and enlarged. Now all these changes result from the minimal presence of local deposits which may not be able or capable of producing this exaggerated response. However, puberty gingivitis may not occur in all individuals, and as adulthood approaches, the severity of this exaggerated response of gingival tissues to the hormones reduces. Occurrence of gingivitis during puberty can be prevented by maintenance of good oral hygiene. Changes in the gingiva during the menstrual cycle may occur as a result of either imbalances in the hormones or in women with ovarian dysfunction. Now, the females may experience a bleeding gums and a bloated tense feeling in the gums in days prior to the menstrual flow. Gingival inflammation occurs associated with increase in the exudate from the gingiva during the menstrual flow, and there's also an increase in the bacterial count in the saliva during the menstrual cycle and at ovulation. During pregnancy, many hormones come into play and they lead to exaggerated response of gingiva to local factors like plaque and calculus. A slight gingivitis prior to pregnancy transforms into an enlarged, edematous and discolored gingivae. Some women experience gingival bleeding, tooth mobility and color changes ranging from bright red to bluish red. And clinically, one can observe a marginal and interdental gingiva which are edematous, and they also put on pressure, they appear smooth and shiny, and they are soft and pliable, and sometimes they may have a raspberry-like appearance. Sometimes a discrete tumor-like masses called pregnancy tumors are also seen in pregnant women. Now under the microscope, we can see a hyperplastic epithelium with accentuated retipex, and there's a decrease in keratinization and engorged capillaries. Edema and degeneration of the epithelium and the connective tissue are seen, and there's an intense infiltration with PMNs. Now gingivitis becomes more severe by the 8th month and decreases by the 9th month of gestation, and the greatest severity is seen during the 2nd and the 3rd trimester. Now subgingival flora becomes more anaerobic, and the predominant microorganism is the Prevotella intermedia. Accentuation of gingivitis during pregnancy occurs during two peaks. The first peak is at the 1st trimester, where under the influence of gonadotropin hormones the different changes occur, and the second peak is at the 3rd trimester due to an increase in the estrogen and the progesterone production. The increased progesterone levels produce dilation of the vasculature and leaking of fluid into the perivascular tissues. Increased elevation of estradiol and progesterone during pregnancy also leads to an increase in the Prevotella intermedia. The decrease in maternal T lymphocyte response leads to an altered tissue response to local factors like plaque. And the mast cell destruction by sex hormones leads to the release of antihistamine and proteolytic enzymes, which leads to an exaggerated inflammatory response. So this is how the sex hormones influence the periodontium during pregnancy. Now, consumption of hormonal contraceptives by women also has its own effect on the gingivae. Now, these hormonal contraceptives aggravates the gingival response to local factors like many other conditions because of female sex hormones, and there's an increased periodontal destruction when these contraceptives are taken longer than 1.5 years. Next is the menopausal gingival stomatitis, also known as senile atrophic gingivitis. Now this condition occurs because of the cessation of estradiol circulation during menopause and the resultant gingival stomatitis. Now this occurs in the post-menopausal period, and many women experience oral disturbances. The clinical features are the drying up and a shiny gingiva and the oral mucosa, and change in color from pale to red, and the gingiva bleeds easily, and fissuring of the mucobuccal fold is seen. Microscopically, an atrophy of the germinal and the prickle cell layers of the epithelium are seen, and along with areas of ulceration, and the patients often complain of dryness, burning sensation associated with extreme sensitivity to thermal changes, and abdominal taste sensation. Many a times the women complain of difficulty in removal of prosthesis. So this is all that could be included in this part of the topic. In the next topic, we'll discuss some more endocrine disorders and hormonal changes, hematological disorders and the influence on the periodontium, and immune deficiency disorders. Thank you.